Welcome everybody for tonight's training, Tuesday live training, spiritual game plan versus taking it day by day, taking it step by step. So welcome everybody. I'm really excited for you to be here. And today is really important as we continue to grow in our spiritual journey and our spiritual path, because we tend to like to plan. We tend to like to overdo things, and we're going to talk about the differences between planning and taking it step by step and how to work with those. So the first thing we're going to look at is how to plan your future in alignment with your heart. This is really important because the more we're in alignment with our heart, the more the flow comes, the more the abundance comes in every area of our lives as we continue to flow with every areas of our lives. So that's the first thing. The second thing is balance between action and stillness to create your plan, to create your future plan. The third thing we're going to look at today is what to do when you feel stuck. What to do when you feel stuck. So again, welcome everybody. And Peter, good morning. And welcome everybody for tonight's training. And I'm so excited that you're here. Again, we have a lot of information. Hello, Sam. Thank you for coming. And also an announcement is that in December, we are doing the Portal to Enlightenment workshop. It's your role. Basically, you find out what your role in the ascension process is. You find out what your role in the ascension process is. And then also so many good information, so many bonus trainings, really getting into techniques and how-tos, like really good nitty-gritty techniques and energetic techniques. So with that being said, everybody who is getting to know how the the Lightworkers and Healers Tribe works, is that we do get a lot of information in the Tuesday live trainings, and we get some how-tos and we may have some meditations, but it's like everyday training that we need on our spiritual journey, on our spiritual path. Whenever we get into the workshops, whether it's a one-day workshop, whether it's the 5-day Portal to Enlightenment workshop coming up in December, that really gets into the energetics and the techniques and going way deeper. As you've noticed in the past training, self-love, inner child, and heart healing, you went into meditation and the deeper dive. Before that, the workshop was Sharpen Your Intuition. You went into the techniques and a deeper dive into the intuition. So any workshops that come up, you get so much good stuff. And again, this one, the Portal to Enlightenment, it's a 5-day workshop. It's coming up in December, and I'll start posting things about that, and I'm excited. And there's also opportunities for gifts and all of that, so I'm really excited to bring that to you, and a scholarship to Lightworkers Acceleration Program. I do that every time for the Portal to Enlightenment workshop. So woo! All right, everybody, as you're joining, welcome. How are you doing? Comment below. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know. You know, it's been a weird ride, up and down, right? You have some really good days, and then it feels like a bomb dropped on you some days. It's been confusing, right? Maybe it's, been rough to a certain point, and then you've had some like, whew, finally things are moving, things are going lately. So yeah, comment down below, let me know how you're doing. Like this live to get people to come. If you like our tribes, if you want to share it. Jasmine said that was me Sunday. And hello guys. Awesome. So let us begin in what we're going to be talking about today. I feel like it's time. Oh yeah. So again, just a reminder for all the new people, if you're newer here, every Tuesday is a Tuesday live training with different spiritual topics, unless we have a workshop. And the next workshop is in December. That's the Portal to Enlightenment. So, first things first is we're going to talk about how to plan your future in alignment with your heart. This is important because so many times we try to make our future plan with our minds, what we think we need to do. Or like, hey, like, let's go this way just because it seems right? And so with this, the first thing I want to talk about is, you really want to start diving into your heart. See what your heart says whenever you are beginning to plan or whenever you're taking it step by step. And the reason why we do this is because we're learning how to really tap in to our heart in the alignment, and this really helps us give ourselves self-love. And I'm going to talk about this whenever it comes to inner child, because let's think about it. When we plan, and we're planning based on, hey, this is what I think I should do. Or maybe you get, maybe you are hopping into your heart and you get, some information of planning. But then there's also that wiggle room of you still add things that your mind thinks you should do. For example, you begin planning, right? Writing a plan for, maybe it's your career, maybe it's the next week, maybe it's the rest of your life, like where you see yourself going, whatever plan you're trying to create. We plan, and what happens when we don't follow our hearts? Our plans fall apart. Why is this? When we start planning, and this is coming from our minds, and we're not checking in, and we're not changing the plans, maybe even daily, or checking in to see if whatever is right, our plans start falling apart. Here's why. It's because whenever we make a plan and we don't tap in and we don't see what our inner child is needing, what our bodies are needing, and we go based on, well, let me just finish this. Let me just get this done with so I don't have to worry about it anymore. So you're pushing yourself forward. Our plans fall apart because then we stop listening to our bodies. We stop listening to our inner child, our inner children. This is the one way we self-sabotage, like a big way we self-sabotage when we don't check in with ourselves, because then we ignore what our bodies need, what our hearts need, what our inner child needs, and we don't give ourselves self-love. I mean, how many in this group, and raise your hand, but me, whatever it is, how many of you in this group are big planners? You like to know, you like to plan, whether you're a planner and then you take it step by step and you break it down, you like total organization, whether you're a planner, you just really like planning, maybe it's not step by step, but you have like the major, this is what's going to happen. Let me know, like, woo, yep, got some like me, some thumbs up. Oh yeah. So it's common because that is exactly how we were trained. But we've missed major aspects in planning of how to actually plan with alignment that is in alignment with our hearts. Well, first of all, most of us weren't taught how to tap into our hearts, how to tap into our bodies and see what we're needing and what our inner child needs to give ourselves love. So again, whenever we don't tap in and see what we need, and I'll tell you how to do this in the end, but if we don't tap in and see what we need, then we get so upset because our inner child is so upset, right? A part of us, our wounded inner child, because in the past we forced and we wounded ourselves because we didn't listen to ourselves, we get so upset that on some level we self-sabotage. So then your plan goes to crap. How many times does that happen? It's like you're like, oh no, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna yes, this is it. I'm gonna have it done in this time period. Oh, how many of us set time periods? Like by this date, I need to have it done. And that's completely you mental. Maybe your heart's guiding you to do it, but maybe you set a time on it. And then what may happen? We may not get there. And then we get, sad that we don't get there. Right? It's because we stop listening to our bodies because we have a plan. If we have a plan, we need to follow it. Right? That's the only way it's going to get done, or we're not going to complete it. That's the thinking process that we've had from the past, is that we create a plan, we stick to the plan. And that's the only way we're going to get it completed. Because many of us have probably really have that belief system, because many of us probably started a plan, and then if they didn't stick to that plan, then they probably fell off and never completed it in the first place. So you have the two aspects. You have that aspect of, we probably do have that first belief because we tended to not stick to the plan and not complete it anyway. So there's two aspects there, but I'll talk about them whenever we get to the end. So this is what we're really learning, again, guys, is love, self-love. And how do we have that self-love? Is giving ourselves that self-love by listening to what we need in that moment. So planning is very, very important, but there's a way to plan. And it's not the planning that we used to think. It's not the planning of forcing ourselves, having a plan, doing it step by step, and forcing. That plan doesn't work, again, because we self-sabotage. Depending on how strict you are with it, if you have a certain plan and you don't let it change, or you set a due date and that wasn't in alignment with your heart in the first place, most likely you're going to self-sabotage, or you're going to complete it, but you're very unhappy and therefore self-sabotage in another way. That happens all the time, is that we may start a plan, get it going, but we're not listening to our hearts. And then, boom, we complete it, and we're like, yeah, but then we're so unhappy that we're not even happy we completed the task. Boom, losing self-love, losing self-recognition. Why? Because, yeah, we completed the task, but it didn't feel good doing it. So then when we actually get to that finish point, we don't give ourselves the love and the, yay, like, go me, woo! Because we're not happy about it. Because we suffered in some way. Because we didn't listen to that inner child. And I'm reading all of your comments and absolutely love it. Yeah, so with that being said, let's talk about reasons why we plan. Number one is the ones that are not in alignment with our heart. Here are some reasons. Number one is we plan because of control. If we plan, we can control what happens. If we control, we decrease the risk. We decrease the ability of things happening, and we decrease the risk for it, and therefore that fear of the unknown, which is why we control in the first place, one major reason, we limit that fear of the unknown because everything's known. So we talked about this. So when we are not in alignment with our hearts and we're planning, we plan because we try to control, which is because we don't want things to happen that could be bad for us, right? Second reason is deter us away from the now, right? We have to, do things to not make us think of the now. We have to keep thinking of the future because we don't like the now, which means we don't like being in our bodies and feeling our bodies. So, with that being said, when we create a plan, we're consistently thinking of the future. If you're, and this is the part where we're not in alignment, okay? We're talking about when we're not in alignment, because everything is based off of intention. So I'll talk about when we are in alignment and we're planning. That's different. So we're trying to deter ourselves from the now is because we're trying to make a plan for ourselves because we don't like where we are now. We're unsatisfied with the way we are now. So if we make a plan for the future, then we don't have to be in the now because we can start working for the future. So it gets us out of the now. So if we think about it, it's because we can't sit in our bodies comfortably. So think about how many times you've been in situations where you are so miserable, so unhappy, and the first thing you do is get to action on how you can start moving forward in your life, right? It's immediately, let's make those actions. For example, you have a major life change. First thing you may do, instead of to sit and to work on and to embrace the life change, the first thing you may do is let's make a plan and get to work because I need to change this. That is trying to make changes outside of you before actually getting comfortable within you, because you don't want to be comfortable in your own body. You aren't comfortable in your own body, so you're focusing on the future to get you out of your body. So that's the second reason why we may create a plan. So the intention is super important. Here's why. Say if we are in alignment with our hearts and we're creating a plan, this is creating actions so that we can go further and create and to manifest. But we're in alignment with our hearts, okay? But the intention there isn't to focus on the future because we don't like now, isn't to control. It's simply because it feels good to plan. So the intention behind the planning, and yes, absolutely agree, Nandini. What she said, the plan is associated with 3D more. In the old ways of thinking of it, yes. Yes. Because a plan can be set for the 5D aspect of it. And that's what I'm teaching for tonight, which is amazing. So when we are in alignment with our hearts, the first thing is we're creating action steps so that we can move forth and have that plan go. But whenever we create those action steps are what is being guided. Okay. The second intention, or when we are in alignment with our hearts, reasons why we may create a plan is manifestation, where we put the manifestation of which is the focus and intention on a certain path that feels good for us so that we can manifest and create it in the future. So it's the action of putting focus and intention into manifesting and creating in the future. This is when we are in alignment with our heart. So the intention behind our planning, again, is really important. If we have the intention behind our planning of, because we're fearful of something happening, that's when you need to actually go back and dive in. If we are trying to get away from the now because we're unhappy in our bodies, that's the intention that you want to dive into and heal that first before you start making a plan. Before we start making any plan, does it feel right to make a plan? If not, it's that step by step, day by day. I'm going to talk about that. So Nandini said, sometimes because of the ego manifestation, we may not feel happy at the end. Exactly. Because we're somehow, putting in we're basically taking that wounded inner child that we weren't giving love and we weren't listening to, which then has the ego, right, for the protection. And we talked about that in the ego training. And if you haven't seen that yet, Ego and Its Ways, I do suggest going watch it. But we have the ego jumping in to put a little Band-Aid over it, and not to actually heal it, but to put a Band-Aid over it. And then the ego itself can push us forward so that we don't focus on the fear, on the pain, on the hurt, or whatever it is, on the wounded inner child, and then we try to push forward with force. And because we do that, our wounded inner child doesn't feel good because we're not healing it, because we're just not listening to our inner child in the first place, if that makes sense. So let's go into balance between action and stillness to create your plan. This is so important. So important. So as I've mentioned before, we create our plans with our minds in most cases. That's how we've done it in the past. And this is where we're going to be changing this up. That we're really going to dive into our hearts to start creating our plans if it's in alignment. Okay? So we create our plans a lot of times with what we think we should be doing. How much time we think it should take to finish out one plan, one task, one objective. And we base it off of what normal people would do. How long it would take for one person to actually do it, when in fact, our role in it may take a lot longer or may take a lot shorter, right? So it's basing it on our minds. So when we do this, when we create a plan with our minds because we think we need to be on a certain level or it should take a certain amount of time, instead of trusting the process, we force. We push to do and we force. So, for example, whenever I was talking about balance between the action and balance between action and stillness for planning to create the plan, here's an example of a client. One client, for example, was using the action to not feel, right? She used the action to not feel in her body now. It was to help her focus on the future. right? And now what we did was we took away the planning. We completely took away the planning, and she had to work day by day, step by step, checking into her body, checking into her heart to see what feels good and what doesn't. If it doesn't feel good, to not do it. So then when it was time, when she realized that she got comfortable in her own body, because she had to, because she realized it, because she wasn't distracting herself with plans and what to do next and keeping herself busy. And it also made her realize how much she was dependent on plans, on planning. So when we took away the planning itself, it's like that pendulum swing. So we have extremes, right? Here's the complete planning, like highly OCD planning. And I'm not necessarily saying this in a bad way, it's just an extreme, right? Then we have the other side of not planning at all. So you have a person who's kind of like laissez-faire, as in, like, yeah, that's fine, go with the flow, and just doesn't plan. Then you have a person who is complete OCD, planning step by step, day by day, task by task. That's the two extremes. Where do you fall in that pendulum? Are you here? Are you more towards the middle in that balance zone? The thing is that when people are more towards the extremes, to understand and to let go of those extremes is to fall on the other side. Get to know the other side really well so that you can then swing back and forth until you meet the balance. Will we always have balance? No, we're humans. So it may swing just a little bit and you'll get better at it, maybe a little bit more, and then maybe you get the balance and then you're like, So that was one example. And the reason why, another example is that here's another example of someone who completely was the I need to do this, and this. There was that control aspect in it. So she went through something really rough. And this really rough push in her life, the really rapid, huge change for her, pushed her into not knowing what to do next, feeling completely lost because her whole life just switched on her. It was like the universe, God, spirit, whatever you believe in, pushed her into a corner where she had to make changes. Or not, depending on what she chose, but she chose to make changes. And we only focused with her, not on planning, on taking it step by step. This is what I really teach whenever it comes to going through really hard times in your life, because your mind is so, bogged down, overwhelmed, and the energy and the emotions because of the hard changes in your life, that is to take it step by step. It's to take it little bits by bits and practice on tuning into yourself. So what she did was she continued to practice on tuning into herself. What does she need right now? What does she need in the moment? What does she need to work on? She continuously journaled. She continuously meditated. She wasn't really good at meditating by herself, so she did guided meditations. And then we slowly started introducing, so she let go. She let go of the control because she let go of the planning. And it helped her look into control and why she needed to control. She let go the need to have to be in the future because she allowed herself to start looking into herself. She got comfortable in her body. She got comfortable in the here and now. So then whenever we reintroduced planning, we did it in a different way. So now, because it was a period of time, she's now created a habit with it. So now she looks in and checks into herself all the time. Now she can do this with planning. So if you're the type of person who just plans for control, who plans because you want to skip the hard parts and not be in your body, who plans for the intentions that are not of your highest benefit, one way to go about this, and this may be a little bit in the extreme, but it's a way to get things done and really get it moving, is take away planning. Take away planning for good until you feel 100% comfortable without planning. It may take a bit of time, but it works. So then whenever you're totally 100% comfortable without planning, taking it step by step, you're checking in, you're doing your work, you're journaling, then you add in planning back to your life, you'll be able to plan and take it step by step with planning. You'll be able to add the two together. So another thing too is that when we plan, we do like to skip the hard parts, right? Because we're getting out of our bodies, we're getting out of the feeling. So if we let go of planning, if you need to, some people, they're fine and they can just, work on the pendulum swing, and they're trying to get to the balance. But if you want to have if you are on the control side, or the planning side, and you're not one to let go of that, if you really want to jump in, let go of planning totally. That's at the extreme, or you can do it step by step. Okay, so let's go into what to do when you feel stuck with direction. Okay, let's go into it, guys. So say we feel stuck or blocked. Something happens, we feel stuck or blocked, and we want to plan, but we want to take action, we want to plan. Here's the problem. A lot of times when we feel stuck or blocked, what's the first thing we do? We look outside for answers. And I've talked about this, guys. We search outside for answers, trying to get the answers. Another thing is we plan, right? We do everything to get out of, what's within us, okay? So whenever I was talking about, stillness versus action, there's many times where we want to take that action, and if we don't know what to do, that's when we create that stillness. That's when we go into ourselves and work on ourselves and learn to be in ourselves. Because a lot of times inaction is actually the way to go. Because when we don't know which direction, we try to force it. We're like, okay, nothing's working, let's make a plan. But many times when we feel blocked, when we feel like something's stopping us, it's actually telling us, hey, look inside. To look inside, right? To not force the action, right? And we tend to do that, especially in hard times, is because that's our reaction. That's our reaction. So here's the biggest thing whenever it comes to do, like whenever we do feel stuck in which direction to go, and we want to plan, but we feel stuck and we don't know what to do. Number one is inaction, as in wait. We're always so used to forcing. We're always so used to jumping ahead, creating a plan. And then Danny said we try to fix it, then heal it. Yes, 100%. We try to, overdo, jump in, fix it, but not actually go to the root of it. So whenever we feel blocked, what's the first thing that you do? Number one, inaction. Inaction in a way of not making the plans, but going within. Meditating on it, journaling on it. Number two is have patience. If you don't have the answer which way to go, do not force it. Do not push through. This is what we're learning. We're learning to have patience and surrender when we don't have the answer. Here's one thing that we could do, which is why I'm telling you, the direction to go, is that say we don't know which direction to go. And then we're like, okay, well, I'm just going to sit here and wait for the answer to come. That's not how it works necessarily. Sometimes, if your heart is guiding you, sometimes your heart's saying, okay, give yourself a break, give yourself a rest, it'll come in time. So, but many times it's about inaction, so going within our hearts, seeing what our heart says about it, not having to create that plan, not having to take that action just yet. Having patience with it. Guys, this one's big. This one's really big. I've talked in the Zoom meeting right before this with my clients. I talked to them about this right now, is that a lot of us are really like, because we feel that upset, or we feel lost, or we feel broken, or we feel like we don't know what to do, we're jumping in and trying to get answers and trying to get take action because we feel like the action has to happen now. This is where the practice really comes in, is having patience and trusting and surrendering into it. So yes, diving into your heart. And that sometimes we do need to wait for an answer. We do need to wait for an answer. This is important. And I'm feeling, I didn't write this over and over like and star, like this is important. No, I'm feeling to like guidance is right now saying this is really important. That we do need to wait for an answer if the answer is not there. Don't create an answer. Ooh, that's it. Don't create an answer. Let the answer come. This is what we're skipping out on. This is what we're not doing. What we're doing in general is we're creating an answer because we feel like it should be time. We feel like it should be now that we have an answer, or we feel like it's been this long, or we just can't sit in this pain, this rush, or this nervousness, or this tension, and we need it now. Don't create the answer. Let it come. So inaction, which is not creating a plan, but actually going into yourself. And it doesn't mean you have to work on yourself. Sometimes it's going into your heart and your heart saying, rest. Take time. Surrender. Here's what I've been doing. It came up today for me. Obviously, I learn off of everything I teach too, in different aspects. Is one thing I would do is if I felt like I haven't been so involved in the Lightworkers Acceleration program, or if I'm not talking to people constantly and I feel like I'm taking rest time because I need it. For example, I slept today. I took a nap today, and I don't normally take naps, but I needed it. What I try to do is I overcompensate. So I got tested today. I kept feeling, I need to create a new time for Zoom calls where they can, ask questions and we can dive into whatever they need to work on. I felt like I needed to create a new time. And that's because I felt like my time has been spent elsewhere, recuperating, giving myself rest, giving myself love. My test from the universe, God, Spirit, whatever you believe in, was, am I going to implement this? Because what I was doing is I gave myself rest, I gave myself love with my inner child, but then I'm trying to overcompensate for doing so because I feel like, maybe something's wrong. Maybe I should have, I'm not hearing from my clients so much. Instead of trusting the process, I wanted to overcompensate and then offer a whole new hour, a whole new call when it's not time for that yet. So I tried to overcompensate. So whenever I felt to do that, did I react and do it? No. Here's why. Because something, this little tiniest bit, felt off. Because that little tiniest bit felt off with it, I waited for the answer. I didn't jump to it. What did I realize? I realized that I was trying to overcompensate, and that's actually not time for that. That was a test. It was the universe testing me, like, are you really going to give yourself love and continue with the flow? Or are you going to give your inner child love, give yourself rest, and then overcompensate later? Because that's something else we do. Overcompensate later because we felt like we didn't do enough now. That one I felt to mention too. So where do you do that in your life? Where do you, if you do, overcompensate later and feel rushed to do something later or give more time to other people later? So yeah, sure, you gave yourself love now, but you're just moving it to later, that you're giving too much instead of trusting that space you had, that time you had was perfect and everything surrounding it needed to be in that place. Nothing was wrong. It was how it needed to be. You got that space to give yourself rest because it needed to be. Okay, that was a little extra tidbit. So, when you are looking into and working on planning, So we talked about why we plan, and we talked about creating a plan that's in alignment with our hearts, not because of in control, not because of any fears that come up, not because of us being in our, not wanting to be in the moment. So what we're learning to do is you can take it different ways as how you want to approach this. Is number one, you can take away planning and see what fears come up. See if the fear of being present in your body, not knowing what to do and thinking you have to do something, see if that comes up. If you take away fear, even if it's a short amount of time, see if control comes up, right? If you take away fear, though, what I'm feeling to say is that if you take away planning, don't set a date of when you're going to start planning again. Because if you set a date, you're going to be able to not worry about it because you know it's coming back. If you don't set a date, you don't know when planning is coming, that's when the fears are going to arrive. That's when the control and the fear of the unknown or the fear of being present or anything like that will come up. So you can start out saying, hey, I'm not going to plan. See what comes up. Especially if you're a planner. See what comes up. So that's one aspect, one way you can take and work on, journaling, meditating, work on what comes up, work on the fears with emotional release, work on being present, being in your body. And then when you feel it's time and your heart says it's time, not rushing, when your heart says it's time, then you can add back in the planning. That's one way to do it. For those of you that are a little bit more wanting to, you like to dip your toe in the water and do it more from that way, then what you can do is really look, and this is for the other people too, is really look at when you're planning where you are. Are you in your heart? Does it feel good to plan in that moment? If it doesn't feel good to plan in that moment, let it go. Take it step by step. Check in with yourself, check in with your heart multiple times a day, which this is setting the practice to look into ourselves multiple times a day, because that is a practice that we do eventually, as we continue to practice it, want to incorporate. That's where we're trying to live in the now. So practicing on checking in with ourselves throughout the day is giving ourselves more space to stay in our hearts throughout the day, because we're learning how to do that. So technically, do we really need planning in the 5D, in the fifth dimensional energy? Yes, but it's a different planning. The planning is coming, you only plan when it's in alignment. So if you get the message from your heart, because you're checking in and you know what your body is saying, this is where we're getting to, guys. You check in with your heart and your heart says, hey, work on this, plan this. You start making out a plan for it, but your plan is based on your heart. Your plan is being guided by your heart. That's the new plans we're making. That's the new plans we're creating. So as we're doing this, say we're completely in the 5D, say, we're checking in and we're creating the plans from our hearts, right? These plans aren't going to be often, and they're going to be most likely shorter. And not only that, when we create the plans, there's no expectation to them. This is where we're getting to, is there's no expectation. Plans will change. Or can change. I'll say can, because we don't want to create that it will change or it'll change over time. Plans can change. And to allow that to happen. So the 5D idea of planning is simply not because you're trying to stick out, what it is you want to create in a certain way. No, it's to put those action steps towards a goal and then shift as you continue to look into your heart and create new plans if you're guided to plan in the first place. If not, you take it step by step. But the thing is that it's going to shift, and here's why. The more you follow your heart, the more you take those action steps, the more you do dive in, you look at yourself, you release, you're listening to your body, you're flowing with your body, the more doors will open that weren't there before. So if you don't allow yourself to shift with your plans shift with the movement of your heart and the alignment of your heart, then you're going to miss those opportunities with those new doors opening. So planning is not the same way as it used to be. We're not trying this stick to this one thing. We're setting action steps, taking those steps, and when something changes, create a new plan. Create a new plan with the heart's alignment. Create a new plan. It's going to be constantly shifting. And that is the path to your purpose. And I don't know, I'm getting the message to say this right now with purpose, is that people think purpose is a destination. It's not. It's the path. It is the path. And when you follow your heart, you are on your path of your purpose. And here's why I'll give a little tidbit with that, is because typically when we do get what our purpose is generalized, and how we create that generalized purpose depends on the choices that we make and the way that we go. So for example, one person, we did an initiation, one of my clients did an initiation, and she got that she's going to help pull people out of a downward spiral. People that are falling in, she's going to help them assist them out of a downward spiral. So purposes are actually more generalized. So how she does that is by her heart guiding her and her making choices. So it's actually the path. Because we tend to start doing our purpose way sooner than we think we're actually doing our purpose. We just don't realize it because we think it's a destination. I love that. Mel said, yes, we can't plan our purpose. Because new doors open up each time you continue to follow your heart. Okay, so the last little tidbit that I want to say is, and this was coming up again, that I wanted to reiterate this, and again, I just mentioned it with my clients, is that we're trying to do big things here. We're trying to jump the gun, and it seems like this is a pattern right now, so which is why I'm bringing it up. What do I mean by that? Is that it's like we're searching for big answers, or we're used to getting big answers, big changes, and that when we don't, and we feel like we're plateaued, we feel like we're not moving forward, then we get nervous. And that's when many of times we try to plan, like, wait, things aren't changing to shift drastically for me. Because maybe a lot of us got used to the changes happening so drastically this year, and changes within ourselves happening on such a big scale, that when we start to scale back and it comes back down to our basics of journaling, to our basics of meditation, and if you can't meditate, guided meditations, and releasing emotions, when it scales back to our basics and our foundation, because we've been doing such big jumps this year with our spiritual path or spiritual life, and then all of a sudden we get scaled back and we feel like we plateaued, we didn't. We're being reminded that the base, what we call the basics, journaling, meditating, again, even if it's guided meditating, and like releasing those emotions and going into those emotions, that is the foundation that we need. We're going back to, we don't always need huge steps. We don't always need to see this big boom in our lives. Maybe we got used to it this year because that's what's been happening. But we're coming back to the basics and to the practice, because it's a practice. So if you feel like you've taken a step back or you're not seeing big answers, don't start planning. Don't start looking for big answers if it's not guided. It simply means you're not going backwards, but you're going back to what is the foundation, and that's really important. And to do that, because we go in cycles. Everything has cycles. Earth, planets, seasons, right? Sun, moon, all of that. We have cycles. Okay, and another thing that I wanted to say is allow the flow to happen, okay? Again, I've talked about the wounded inner child, and when you set a plan, that is the 3D idea of plan, and you're not listening and tapping into your hearts, then you're wounding your inner child that has been wounded from the past because you weren't listening to him or her in the first place. And you're creating that wounded inner child cycle by not listening to your body. And of course, this takes time. This takes practice. Again, guys. But allow the flow. Listen. If you set a plan and your plan immediately stops because on a day you're supposed to get so yada 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 done, but you feel to sleep all day, actually, hell, you take a week or 2 weeks out because you're just exhausted for whatever reason, that's not messing up the plan. That is the plan. That's in alignment with your heart. Not the plan you think should happen. The plan shifted, you didn't shift with the plan. Listen to your body, listen to your inner child. When the plan shifts, if you have a plan, trust it. Because that's what you need. The more you listen to your body, to your inner child, the more abundance will flow. The more you're going to stop blocking yourself. Because that's giving yourself self-love. And the biggest thing that we've been working on is self-love. The more self-love, the more you raise yourself up, the more you're going to continue to not only raise in vibration, but raise in this lifetime. Enjoy this lifetime. Really enjoy and love this lifetime. The more you're giving yourself that love. Christina said, same here. Melissa said, allowing the flow has been huge for me this year and so transformational. Awesome. Also, I do want to say another thing that we do when we plan and say we plan something and then boom, we get hit with this tiredness, or we get hit with needing a break in some form or fashion, and you give yourself that break, you're then creating space so that you can receive new information. And this is why it opens up abundance for you. But if you create a plan and you push, you need that break, you need that space, your heart is saying, hey, I need to rest. If you actually tap into it, but you push through it, you're not creating that space for new information to come in. So that plan is not shifting because you haven't received those messages to shift. Because you weren't listening to your heart, your body, your inner child, for example. Mel said, foundation, journaling, releasing emotions, meditating, emptying the mind, seeking into the heart, which is receiving. I love it. Brigitte said, no wonder all my plans this year seem to fizzle into nothingness. Because this is what we're learning. We're learning to let go of plans. Because plans, the intention behind the plans, may not have been heart-centered. So again, guys, if we're creating plans and we want to do it in heart's alignment, we only create the plans that we're guided to create. If we don't get plans for something, wait. Check in with your heart. Hey, heart, do I take action on something or do I wait? Do I surrender? Do I have patience? And again, when we're creating plans in the 5D, it's only because we're creating action steps to go forth and create, but we're going with the shifts and the changes. So our plans are going to change over and over and over again as we tap in. So every day with planning in the old way, we thought plans have to be set, and that's how it is. With planning in the 5D, every day we check into ourselves and see if that plan is still in alignment. Every time we're about to do something, we check in with ourselves and see if what we're about to do is still in alignment with that moment. If it's not, we shift. So it's not the same. It's not the same at all as the old plans. And the reason why we do it is because we're creating action steps to go forward, even though whatever forward way it will be, we don't know. And the second part is manifestation and focus and intention. We're putting more focus and intention as we create the plan because we're putting a plan onto paper. We're putting focus and intention on a direction we want to go, even though that direction is going to shift, turn, and change. Whew. Nandini said, I feel that tiredness too. I have not been keeping up with the collective consciousness. Typically, I would, do the videos of, hey, this is happening on a collective consciousness, in the collective consciousness. I have been in a way of, giving you updates, as far as, giving you updates on, what a lot of us are going through, but I haven't so much as, what's going to come up with the collective consciousness, just because it's been so shifty. Like, we've been working on so much in like such a little time. And we can make it simpler. It's not so complex, but I feel like it's just been shifting so much that I haven't even kept up with it because I've been just trying to keep up with myself. But I'm going to continue to show you and reach out and tell you any shifts that a lot of us may be going through if I feel guided to do so. So Jasmine said, I checked in with myself. I found boundary setting with people, and when you end things with someone you date, they say we are better off as friends, and projection of their wounds of previous relationships. Yes. Yeah. And thank you so much for everybody for coming. I am happy y'all are all here. And again, if you have any questions, if you do, for anybody who's watching this later, if you watch this later, tag me if you have a question. I mean, Facebook is not that great. If I don't get back to you, send me a message, or you can reach out to Christina Clairvaux. She is the community manager, either one. Because Facebook doesn't show me all my messages, okay? So I'm not ignoring you. I just might not be getting it. So reach out to me. So good night, everybody. Have an amazing night, and I will see you in Divine Timing or in the next Tuesday live training next week. Bye, guys.